This sister behind me is a real superwoman, a African-American woman who has just qualified for the 2021 upcoming triathlon, IRONMAN triathlon in Hawaii. I am so excited to get the exclusive report with Dr. Tiencia James as she makes history, people, right here on the LiLLiA DePaSS show. Coming up next. Dr. James, Dr. Tiencia James, thank you so much for being on the LiLLiA DePaSS show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't miss this one. This is exclusive, and I'm very thankful to get it. So let's get started. Where are you originally from?
I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It is where I ended up going to elementary school and stayed in Decatur for high school. So pretty local.
Okay, yes, we're in ATL, pretty local, and we know you went to high school where one of major celebrity comedian Chris Tucker went to, Columbia High.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're a runner, you're an athlete, but you started off running. What got you interested in running to compete?
Growing up, my dad used to coach and he would run all the time. So running was kind of my way to spend more time with him. Initially, we just started doing 5K runs and half marathon runs. I would get up early in the morning in high school and we'd run together. So it initially was kind of fun. And then once I got into high school, started to compete on the team.
And I mean, how was that competing? Did you just get an adrenaline? I mean, that's in high school and you're still doing it. So what is it about the competing that you love?
My love for the sport has actually changed over the years. I really loved it in high school. However, it wasn't that popular at the time, at least doing distance running. All of the other teammates were sprinters and I was the lone distance runner. So that was pretty interesting. When I got to college, I think it was very intense. And at that point, I was kind of balancing, doing pre-med and going to medical school versus athletics. And that was kind of the first time where I didn't really know what it would hold in my life. And so I kind of backed off at that time and did it more for fun.
Are you seeing more African Americans competing in some of those sports that we don't necessarily see us competing in, like triathlons or polo or rugby or that type of thing?
I definitely do. When I went to high school, it was a majority Black high school. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was one of the few distance runners and everybody was a sprinter. But now fast forward, you have a lot of people that we're seeing that is running the marathon, doing adventure races. We have a lot of role models out there, such as Simone Manuel in swimming. So we are starting to see more African Americans getting into these different sports where we never were before.
And how does that make you feel? I mean, how does that make you feel personally?
I think it's very exciting because when you start off, you can feel a little bit out of place, a little bit. I remember some of my first races going to the Ironman, everybody's kind of talking and, they're not really talking to you. They don't really look at you as if you're really a competitor. Maybe you're just someone there to finish, and there's nothing wrong with being a finisher, but it's just the assumptions in terms of your quality level. But now that we see more of us getting into it, I feel like, people are respecting us more. And this year we actually had the first African-American female go pro in triathlon. So I do think there's a lot more people coming into the sport.
Well, that's wonderful and very inspiring, especially as a woman of color. So besides Superwoman, okay, I would refer to you as an expert juggler, okay? How do you balance being a mother, a wife, an emergency room doctor, not to, downplay any of the other practices, but I mean, emergency room, okay? You own different multi-million-dollar properties in Atlanta, property owner, management, and a pro triathlete. How do you juggle all of that and stay sane? What is your motivator? What is your center?
I think, there's a lot. First is, how do you fit it all in? And I think that time blocking is very important. And I find that I do a lot of things really early in the morning when nobody else needs me. But I do think some of the things that make it more difficult for me to be an athlete is actually what inspires me to continue to be an athlete. For example, my family, obviously there's some time pressures in terms of training and being with the family, but when you're out there and they're on the starting line or the finish line and they're cheering for you, that just gives you a little bit more motivation and inspiration, that it's not just you competing against other athletes, but you showing your kids that it's okay to do hard things that scare you, that it's okay to go out there when you might fail, that it's okay to dream big. And being an emergency medicine physician, definitely the shift work, working nights and weekends is difficult, but every time I go to work, within the first 15, 20 minutes of my shift, I meet people my age that would give anything to even be able to attempt what I'm doing. So just to have the health and to know how transient that is and how grateful we have to be in this position, really motivates me to keep going. And when I have a bad race or a bad workout, I don't really harp on it, because in the greater scheme of things, it's just amazing to be able to get to do this.
Okay, tell us how you are going to be, why we're going to be cheering you on this year, the latter part of 2021, as you go to Hawaii to compete. Talk about this event, and are we making history with you here? Come on, talk to us.
So I think so. I'm going to be competing in the Ironman World Championships for the full distance, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a 26.2 mile marathon run. And I've done a lot of these races since I think 2014, but you have to qualify to get there. And there's different ways that you can get there. You can definitely do it by charity. There's also a legacy where if you do so many Ironmans, you qualify to get in. But there's also where you have to finish high enough in your age group to be able to get that ticket. And this year in Tulsa, I qualified. And to my knowledge, the first African-American female to qualify by being in the top percentage of their age group.
Congratulations to that. So you get that, people. I'm getting the exclusive right here. Dr. James, Dr. Tiencia James, that's amazing. And we're just so proud of you and are definitely going to be with you there rooting. Is there a site that we can follow you, that people that want to be able to kind of track you and how you're doing during this this competition? Can they do that online?
Yeah, so if you go to the, there's an Ironman Tracker app. And if you go to that app and you find the race, which is going to be the Ironman World Championships in October, and you put my name in, you'll be able to track me along the course, see when I come out the water, off the bike, and on the run. And so that's probably the best way to keep track.
Wonderful. And, we have it on the screen. Viewers, you see how to spell Tiencia James's name. We'll have that right here on the screen as you see. And, what advice could you give some of these young, upcoming, young and aspiring athletes that are out here, especially those Black and brown ones? What kind of advice could you give them?
I would just say to not be afraid to dream big and not be afraid to compete or be in areas that we weren't in before, because there has to be a first person. But the good thing about that is we're not going to be the last. There are going to be others that come behind you. And, when you do something really big, if you break it into small parts and keep going after it over time, whether or not you get there, that's one thing, but you'll get pretty close. So I would just encourage them to, don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of being the only one or it not being a traditional sport. Go after what you love and keep doing it.
I agree totally. That's great advice. And we are definitely wishing you all the best. But However, you know, on this show, since it's my show, I always ask my guests to just grace the camera with a little bit of a jam cam. So we're going to ask that you give us your best moves, and I'm going to give you the different perspective. So hold on right there. Best dance move. Come on. Triathlete. Don't make me don't make me outdo you, Tiencia.
Don't break anything.
Get it. Get it. Oh, move your body. Yeah. All right. This is for Hawaii. Thank you for moving your body, World Dance, Dr. Tiencia James. We are wishing you the best in Hawaii. We're rooting for you in Atlanta, Georgia. Go and represent for everyone, especially our brown and black little boys and girls. Thank you so much for being on the LiLLiA DePaSS show.